This episode of the Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by our proud sponsors, Thrive Fantasy, Built Bar, and ExpressVPN. Now, using promo code DTSN, our listeners can get $20 bonus cash on a deposit of at least $20 on Thrive Fantasy, 10% off their Built Bar protein bar order, and 35% off their ExpressVPN annual subscription. Once again, all you have to do is use the promo code DTSN and tell them the Downtown Rams podcast sent you. Now enjoy the show.
Aaron Donald creates the fumble. Goff goes crashing into the end zone.
It is intercepted by Jalen Ramsey.
Robert Woods, touchdown.
Picked off by John Johnson.
Touchdown, Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air.
Henderson with a good run and a first down. Still on his feet. Touchdown, Van Jefferson. Everett in stride. Wow!
Play for the Lombardi.
All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen, who once again has made me do the intro because he's a fierce dictator who does not ever let me have any fun and makes all the rules. And no, I'm kidding. I asked to do the intro because it's become such a thing now that I feel like I need to get over my anxieties about it and do it. So I'm coming back. I'm doing the intro. And guess what? I'm doing the intro after a Rams win on Monday Night Football. The Rams beat the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football in Tampa Bay. It was awesome. We all wanted the win. And let's be real. If you're like me, you wanted the win not only because you wanted to beat the Buccaneers, it's because you wanted to beat Tom Brady. We wanted to beat Tom Brady. We were coming for blood. We got it. And we won 27-24. Jake, this was an awesome game. It was a close game against a good team, and we won. I mean, there's really not much else that you can ask for. Of course, it wasn't the perfect game. It never is. But just a brief synopsis on my part of what I witnessed tonight was what I said in the last podcast. It was a battle of the defenses, and our defense in particular came up huge, especially Jordan Fuller. And I believe in Jordan Fuller's supremacy. We'll get on that later. Jake, what was your overall thoughts on this game?
Oh my God. When these wins happen, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not the biggest fan of Monday Night Football. I just get those, that feeling you and I had. It wasn't that long ago. It might have been, exactly a year ago. We were sitting here discussing the Rams game while it was going on, and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens were just destroying us. And so, having a game like this, it really just brings out, the energy. And look, Tom Brady has not lost to the Rams since the regular season, I believe, of the year he won the Super Bowl against the Rams. It was the St. Louis Rams. So it's been a while. It's been a very long time. And that's when the Rams won it in Foxborough. But look, Jared Goff, I thought he played pretty well. He had two horrible throws. And I don't know exactly who's at fault for the first one. The second one was really bad. It could have been, a Hendo, upset, whatever. The Rams couldn't run the football. But Jared Goff threw 51 times. That combination of receivers, Alexis, that we were talking about need to get paid, and Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. And I'm not saying everybody did, but, a few people are like, well, how are you going to pay everyone? You can't afford to pay him. Let Robert Woods go. That's exactly why they got Van Jefferson. No, it's not. They got Van Jefferson because he's very good at receiver, and he also had a touchdown in this game. But Woods and Kupp combined for 23 receptions for 275 yards and a touchdown. That, my friends, is why they went out and they signed both of them before the season started. What can you say about Jordan Fuller? You mentioned him having two interceptions. He is the 2020 199th overall pick, and he picked off Tom Brady, who was the 199th overall pick. Yes, I've been holding that in for a while. I could not wait to rip that tweet out, but he picked him twice. This was a big game for Fuller. This is a big game for the Rams defense because, look, they gave up 24 points. You could say that, but when I look at this game, they only got one sack, and it was Samson Ebukam. But let's be real here. First off, they should have had a forced fumble recovery in the end zone. That should have been a fumble. It was probably it was miscalled, in my opinion. I'm sure you'd probably agree with me. And they blew it dead immediately. So, there was a good chance that they would have had a touchdown. Plus you had all sorts of pass breakups, 2 from Fuller, which resulted, he also had 2 interceptions, 2 from Darius Williams, a huge one from John Johnson on Rob Gronkowski. And then, of course, Morgan Fox, who I thought had a really underrated game that probably won't get talked about very often. But this game, the Rams put it together, and it wasn't pretty because this is a game that they probably could have won by a lot more. The offense came out firing on all cylinders until they kind of hit a wall, and we've seen that. But I want to say, one thing. I mentioned in our pregame show that this is a team that, they're starting to find their stride on offense. I think they continued to find something again this week. I think they continue to get better, saw more efficiency from the passing attack. And I think personally, the Buccaneers sold out to stop the run, and it allowed the passing attack to be wide open. So I think that is why you saw an increase in the passing game. And I know Sean McVay, I was yelling at him to run the football, but then I realized I think the Buccaneers came in this game and they said, we'll let Jared Goff, we'll place our bets on Jared Goff beating us, but there's no way we're letting, that backfield with, Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, and Cam Akers beat us. And I think that's exactly why the Rams had 51 attempts with Jared Goff. And ultimately, aside from those 2 interceptions, Jared Goff, he answered the bell.
Yeah, and let's get into Jared Goff, because Jared Goff is such a conundrum, and I think he gave Rams Twitter a heart attack multiple times during this game, and quite frankly, every game. But he came through when we needed him the most, which is what matters. There's a couple of things that I kind of want to break down about Jared Goff in this game. Let's start with the good. The good stuff is, I guess you really don't need to break down, but I mean, when Jared Goff plays like fast tempo, he does well. It's like really bizarre, but it's almost like with Jared Goff, you have to constantly keep going. Do not give him time to think. Do not wait. Just, it's almost like you almost have to always be in like a 2-minute offense, because it's like when he doesn't take time to think, he plays well. When he thinks too much, it's like everything just goes poorly. And then it's kind of like the example with the play clock. Like, what was that? Why did the play clock go down so much? And I don't know if that was just mismanagement, if other people weren't getting it together, if that was Jared Goff, but it's just like things like that don't make sense. But when Jared Goff is in a rhythm, when you play fast, you don't think too much, you give him the play and you go, Jared Goff does well. And when they did that tonight, he did well. When they didn't do that is when he struggled, and he threw an interception and just made bad plays. So I guess I'll let you comment on that. But overall, I was impressed with Jared Goff. I mean, yes, there are some things that he did that he needs to work on. It's the same things that he's kind of needed to work on all season. But when it mattered, he stepped up. And I thought that he did really well, especially at the end of the game. So what were your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, Jared Goff played exactly what the Rams needed him to be in this game. And I think, he definitely has bounced back. I think it's safe to say from the Miami game, he's still turning the ball over. And, I'll actually add on to that in just a sec. But, I think there's some good things to like. I think he's, showing more touch on his passes. You saw, those out routes to Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and I felt like there was more touch on his pass in this game, and that's what I like. When Goff is calm, he's under pressure, he's not throwing one speed. He can throw all different speeds with that football, and when he does, he can really be lethal. And I think that was the thing. He was letting them rip early on. They really looked like if Goff was on like he was, that they weren't going to be beat. And at the end of the day, it was a lot closer than it should have been. Kind of similar to Seattle and very similar to like Washington, for instance, but and you could argue the Bears. But I mean, at the end of the day, this team continues to make strides on offense, and it's not pretty. But I think they're leaning towards they'll figure everything out by playoff time, and they're going to be what I believe they could be a well-oiled machine. But one thing I want to say about Jared Goff's struggles: first interception. I want to take you back to the weird, it's all over the place. Darrell Henderson is going out for what appears to be a screen pass on the left side, and Jared Goff is getting pressured. But the weird thing is here, Jared Goff kind of throws it, just kind of heaves it, and it looks as though he's trying to get it to where Darrell Henderson would have been. It's not a great throw even if Henderson's there. but it almost seems like Henderson ran away. So I don't know, we don't know the play design. We don't know if, Jared Goff was just throwing it away and it was just a bad decision, or if, Henderson's supposed to be there. But either way, miscommunication. That was the first interception. The second interception, I think it was right after the not the false start, but the delay of game, which is it's unacceptable, inexcusable. And I really think it originates from the fact that Sean McVay, and we've talked about this many times on our show, Sean McVay, I think, is doing way too much in Jared Goff's headset. So I think at the end of the day, in Jared Goff's helmet, he's hearing all this stuff. He's trying to focus, and then he's being told to audible to play. And I think a lot of that can get to a young quarterback. I think a lot of that can get to anybody if you're being told to do a bunch of things and do all these things and then also manage the play clock. And I think that's, the issue here. I don't know if it's entirely on Jared Goff as much as it is on, Sean McVay, who's telling him to audible the play and do all this, crazy stuff. And I think that did lead to some pressure on Goff. Not actual pressure with the defense pressuring him, but and they were pressured him. They did pressure him, but pressure in his mind to get this third and long, and he kind of tried to fit it in there to Robert Woods, and there was just nothing there. So two bad mistakes. I do think I want to see less of that audibling. I know they've been doing it for a while. But like I've said on the show before, Alexis, how many times do you think that Sean McVay has audibled out of the correct play? I mean, it's crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, the play calling is another thing that if we want to be picky, we can get into. I mean, there's certainly every game there's questionable play calling on McVay's part. For me, what really stands out is that run on 3rd and 8 towards the end of the game. That did not make sense to me. I know that there was some people who were saying, oh, well, he had faith in the kicker, or, oh, he had faith in the defense. But here's my thing. We were already in field goal range. So, I guess you could say that that's why he wanted to run the ball. But at the same time, it's why not at least try to go for the touchdown? I mean, don't throw anything risky, but that was just weird to me. I don't know if you had thoughts on that, but I know that you know what play I'm referring to in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely.
Where it's 3rd and 8, and I'm just it's another one of those plays. It's like when he calls a screen on 3rd and 10. It's like one of those things that's just so annoying.
Well, I'm watching this with my father, and he said something very, I think it was just spot on. It's very simple. This team, they need to cut out the high risk, low reward plays. And, those dinks and dunks that are behind the line of scrimmage, no doubt, you're just putting more risk, and there's not enough reward for it to really be worth it. So, at the end of the day, I think those things have just, like you mentioned, the 3rd and 10 screens. That's why I brought that up. I think they have actually hurt Goff more than helped him. The screens are just ridiculous. Plus, there hasn't been much of a screen with that 3rd and long. I mean, have you really seen that really do anything? So the 3rd and 8 run you're talking about with Malcolm Brown, I totally hear you. I mean, I saw you tweeted it out, and I mean, you couldn't have said best myself is, Tampa Bay has the number 1 run defense. Why are you running on 3rd and 8 against the number 1 run defense? But at the same time, my biggest critique with that is because I already know that's how he was going to play it. I felt like if they didn't get more yardage on 2nd down, they were just going to try to be conservative and try to run some clock and kick a field goal. Why did the Rams, and I wouldn't be saying this was Zerline, so keep this in mind. Why did the Rams not try to center the kick? Why is he constantly, Matt Gay was constantly kicking from the left hash, the far left hash. Why did they not try to center that? When I watched Tom Brady, with the New England Patriots, one thing that I noticed more than anything is those game-winning field goals that he would set his team up to kick, or, just field goals in general. He would make sure that he was tackled if he could in the middle of the hash marks. And that way it would be a straight shot. And I felt like that was kind of an underrated thing, that that first missed field goal by Matt Gay. I mean, what if he's straight ahead? Does he miss that field goal? So, I mean, that's kind of my thing is I don't know why in a game-winning situation with a brand new kicker 40 yards away, a lot of pressure on him. This is his former team, although I did predict that he would win the game on a game-winning field goal, but I won't say that. Matt Gay, I didn't think he was bad, but I just am saying that I would have liked to see them center that. And he still made it, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why
Well,
you would run it to the far hash.
it's just interesting because, and someone can call me out on Twitter if this is wrong, I believe that the Rams have had a kick missed in every game this season.
I think you're right.
Like, that is not okay. Like, it's just not okay. And I don't want to complain because, listen, I thought Matt Gay did fine. I mean,
Yeah, he definitely
missed.
did.
He did better than any of the other kickers we've had this season. But it is kind of annoying that it's like, I tweeted something. I said, Greg Zuerlein must have cursed the Rams on his way out, because it's just like, we have not been able to have any consistency at kicker whatsoever. But I'm going to take it easy on Matt because it was his first game. 44 yards. I mean, it's not, I mean, you should make that, but whatever. I'm not going to start complaining unless it happens again. But I believe that is true. I believe that the Rams have missed a kick in every single game this season. And the reason that matters is because there's a lot of games as you get down towards the stretch and into the playoffs that come down to whether or not a kick was made. So it's definitely something to look out for. It's not something I'm going to complain a lot about because we got the win. But the last thing really to cover, and it's interesting because I've said this before in the podcast, it's like when there's not a lot to talk about, it means either the team did very bad or very good. And we're on the very good side of this. But there is something that I want to bring up is the Jordan Fuller situation. He is really coming into his own and is worthy, I think, of a starting position at safety, which kind of causes some interesting, I don't want to say drama, but some interesting decisions that are going to have to be made at safety. Jake, you've talked about how you don't think the Rams are going to be able to pay John Johnson after the season. We've got him, and then we've got Fuller, as I mentioned, Burgess, and Taylor Rapp. So with the way that Fuller's playing, I think he's worthy of that starting position. John Johnson is obviously also worthy of that position. So you've kind of got Taylor Rapp being kicked to the curb, except for when he gets brought in kind of at that pseudo linebacker position. But Jake, do you think that because of the way Jordan Fuller is playing, the Rams are going to be even more willing to let John Johnson go in free agency?
I mean, I'd have to imagine, they're going to have to make a tough call. And, I think they want John Johnson back. I mean, in a perfect world, if they had more cap, he would be back. But, I don't think he's going to be back. Sad to say that. But, I think they look really good at the safety position, having, I think they're 3 deep. And I really like the way Nick Scott played when he came in and, in relief for Jordan Fuller. So, I think with Terrell Burgess, Jordan Fuller, Taylor Rapp, Nick Scott, and then potentially a draft pick, I think they'll be fine in the back end. Plus, we know that, Jalen Ramsey was also getting the runs with, the safety spot as well, during the during the training camp, they were working with him in that regard. So, we'll see. I mean, and here's the thing that I really want to bring up, and we're seeing it. If you followed like the NBA free agency, we're seeing it already, with the Los Angeles Lakers, how like players want to go to LA. They want to play for a championship, and they're willing to take a lot less for a team that is cap strapped. And the Rams, I think, are very similar in that regard. And really what they have to do, obviously, is keep winning, football games. But if the Los Angeles Rams, win the Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl or, end up being one of the top teams in free agency, players are going to want to go there and play for Sean McVay. They're going to want to play for Brandon Staley. Knock on wood, he doesn't get scooped up as a head coach. But, I think that's really the interesting thing there, I don't think they're going to go out of their way to pay John Johnson because I don't think they have the money. And they would have to make a myriad of moves to even free up that, that space. Plus, they still have to sign other guys. So you still need to keep money around for, eventually when, you do have to sign a Jordan Fuller or, you do, maybe they want to bring back Gerald Everett. I mean, he's had a huge role in the offense this year. That would be an interesting one. Maybe Josh Reynolds. Like, I don't really know where they're going to go with it. That's the thing that's really interesting to me is there, multiple places they can go. And I'll be honest with you, if I had to pay either Jordan or I had to pay either John Johnson or Leonard Floyd, I know Leonard Floyd wasn't like, a monster in this game. I might go all my chips on the table and pay Leonard Floyd if I had to choose one of them, because I don't think edge defenders like him aren't very common in today's game. They're either really good at running, rushing the passer, or they're really good at stopping the run. But I think he's pretty solid at rushing the passer, and he is one of the best run defenders at the edge position in the league. So, he's a 1-year deal. I'm going with him. But I know it's kind of different, and I know you probably weren't expecting me to take it that route, but I am interested to know if you would go him or John Johnson.
I would go Floyd, and here's why. It's the depth issue. So when you look at the kind of the edge rusher, outside linebacker, whatever you want to call Leonard Floyd, we don't have much depth there. When you look at safety, we have a lot of depth right now. If you let John Johnson walk, then you either have Terrell Burgess or Taylor Rapp taking his spot. Jordan Fuller has kind of, I think, solidified himself in that other safety position. And I would prefer Burgess in the other starting spot, honestly, based on what I've seen. It's nothing against Rapp. Rapp just hasn't he's made good plays, but I don't think he's been consistent enough to me to say that he's more worthy of that spot than a Terrell Burgess based on what I've seen from him. And like you've said on this podcast before, Rapp has kind of proven himself more to be kind of that pseudo linebacker position. He's not necessarily playing super well, like as a pure safety, but he's there. So he's there, and Terrell Burgess is there, which is why I'd be more comfortable letting John Johnson walk as opposed to Leonard Floyd, because I just don't think that we can replace him as easily. But that's a long way down the road. Obviously, I mean, we're not saying this is nothing that the Rams need to think about right away. But in a way, John Johnson is if I'm John Johnson, I'm probably aware of this, and I'm playing to prove to other teams when I become a free agent that I'm worthy of the money that I feel I respect and that we think he deserves, because I do think that he deserves a big payday when his time comes. I don't think it's going to be from the Rams, unfortunately. I wish it could be, but just numbers wise, I don't think it's going to be. So yeah, I mean, it's never a bad problem to have too many good players at one position, which is what we have at safety right now. And kind of in closing, our defensive backs, not the safeties, but like the corners, I thought did really well. Jalen Ramsey had some bad calls on him, which,
well, let's talk about that, because I know our fans listening are probably like, will you just bring up the referees already? And I know, you're not one to really just entirely blame the game on the referees. And yeah. I'm not really either, but I felt like they were egregiously called against the Rams. And you look at the stats, Alexis, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the penalties. The Rams were out. I mean, they basically had more penalties. They had 3 more, right? But the Rams had 5 penalties for 65 yards, and Tampa Bay had 2 for 7. So I felt like, I'm not going to say there was a bias, because I'm not going to accuse the NFL of rigging it. I know I say that when I get pissed, but I don't actually believe it. But it just didn't feel kind of off when, you have Jalen Ramsey and Mike Evans hand fighting. And it's like, I saw Mike Evans literally like push Jalen Ramsey, and Jalen Ramsey got the OPI in the red zone. But the first one, I mean, Mike Evans didn't even try to fight for the ball. And Tom Brady threw up what was literally a punt. And to me, I felt like there were, this is a team that doesn't get flagged very often for pass interference at all. I think they were flagged 3 times this season or whatever. They had 5 in this game, or 4 in this game. So it's like, to me, that's ridiculous. But, what were your thoughts on that?
I agree. Like you said, I'm always really, really careful to like complain about referees. I make jokes about it on Twitter with like memes that I tweet and stuff.
I saw that.
But I'm not super big on blaming refs for calls. I think it's certainly okay to point out when calls are missed or bad calls are made. And to me, that definitely happened tonight. Listen, it was bound to happen. Ramsey and Evans getting physical with each other. They're both competitors. They're both some of the best at their position. And I felt like Jalen Ramsey got called on one of those when it really should have been on Mike Evans. And then that ended up leading to a touchdown. But listen, we got the win. If we hadn't gotten the win, it would probably be more upsetting, understandably. Yeah. But I mean, it's the reality of it is referees are human too. It happens every game. There's always calls that are wrong. That was one of them. I felt like it happened a couple times tonight. Definitely not as upsetting as the Bills game. When it's a situation like that, it's a lot different. But tonight I get why fans are upset. I agree. I didn't want to spend too much time on it. I didn't think too much about it, but it's upsetting. But we got the win. And that's what matters. So I think unless you have any closing thoughts, I think that's going to do it for us.
Well, I'll, because this win puts the Rams actually in the second spot in the NFC. So this is huge. They needed this. And here's the thing that's very interesting. Tampa Bay doesn't have their bye until week 13. Do you know who they have to play next week? The Kansas City Chiefs. So, the Rams win this game, and it's almost like, now if Kansas City can if they could beat Tampa Bay, all of a sudden this team that was hyped up all season long, with Tom Brady and company, they'll most likely make the playoffs, but they would be 7-5, and they would be on the cusp of missing it. And here's an interesting thing for you. If the Rams fans didn't just despite Tampa Bay, if the Rams fans didn't want Tampa Bay to make the playoffs, they would want to root for the Cardinals to win, except for with the Rams, the Seahawks to win, the Giants, not the Giants, the Chicago Bears. And here's why. The Bears beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers earlier in the year when Tom Brady forgot what down it was. The Bears would have the tiebreaker, and they're the 8th seed. So the Bears could literally knock out the Buccaneers if they're not careful. So at sitting there at 5-5, Tampa Bay 7-4, Tampa Bay loses to the Chiefs, they will fall to 7-5, and the Bears, they'd be 6-5 with a win next week. And if they continued that would be really interesting. I mean, that's what I'm interested in. Will Tampa Bay make the playoffs if they lose to the Chiefs? They're going to have to, that's really interesting to me, because I don't think that they are a team necessarily you want to see again just because the Rams did beat them in the regular season. I do feel comfortable the Rams would win in another matchup. But, I think that's definitely interesting. But looking at the standings the way they are, I feel like the Saints are the best team in the NFC right now, because they're 8-2. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And the Rams are 7-3. And keep in mind, the Rams have had, they've had a couple bad games, the 49ers, the Dolphins. So, I think it looks exactly how it should. And then in the AFC, you have the Steelers and Chiefs. And right now, if you had to pick, I don't know where your thoughts are on that, but I think the Rams Saints rematch of, the NFC Championship game in 2018, 2018-2019 season, I think it's very much in play.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, if I had to pick the two best teams in the NFC right now, I would say the Rams and the Saints certainly sound like a viable option. And the Saints are interesting because Drew Brees has bad injuries right now. It comes out every day. It seems like more information about his injury comes out.
More rib breaks.
Right. It's just he's really, really hurt. And, I honestly don't know if he's going to play again this season. And so that can easily, in my opinion, just the way that, the talent that Drew Brees is, that can take a 8-2 Saints team down. And so we'll see how that plays out. If they keep playing well, then I think that it's very reasonable to expect that we'll play them. I think if what I assume is going to happen is I would say the Saints have a very high possibility of falling off. And if that happens, I think that the Bucs kind of take that top spot again beside the Rams. So we'll see. We'll be back later this week with a game preview for the Rams and the 49ers. I believe the 49ers go to LA, so they'll be playing in LA. And that's a divisional matchup. I know that the 49ers, I think right now are 4-6. But but it's still a big game. You never want to lose to a divisional opponent. But thanks for listening, guys. Great win. We should ride with that feeling through the rest of the week and into the game against the 49ers. If you like what you hear, as always, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow Jake at JKBoganDTSN. Like I said, we'll be back later this week with a game preview, but until then, take care and be safe.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Best holiday. Actually, it's the second best. Is this still on? Okay, it is still on. I see it rolling. So let me clarify something. I retract my statement about Thanksgiving being the best holiday. Christmas is obviously the best holiday. Thanksgiving is the second best holiday, and I'm very much looking forward to it, even though I'm having an unconventional Thanksgiving this year. Not that anyone cares, but I'm just going to keep talking about it. I'm having an unconventional Thanksgiving this year. It's like a Zoom. I'm going to be with like some family members, but I'm not going home. I'm not going home for Thanksgiving this year. So,
well, on that note, you guys have a great Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Go Rams. We're going to continue ramping out content. We're going to try to be as good as the Rams are right now because they're 7-3. They're number 2 in the NFC, and they're on their way to getting the number 1 seed. So,
and we are the number 1 seed in all of your hearts.
On that note, you guys have a good one.